Hey guys! Tonight we are venturing into the deep, dark heart of old Europe. We're heading to a place whose very name evokes a sense of ancient mystery and foreboding, the Black Forest of Germany. This is the homeland of Grimm's fairy tales, a sprawling, mountainous woodland of towering firs and shadowed valleys, where history and legend are tangled together like the roots of an old oak. But we won't be sticking to the sanitized, happily ever after versions of the stories. We're going back to a time when the forest was a very real and very dangerous place, and the tales told about it were less children's bedtime stories and more grim warnings. Let's be honest, if you were suddenly dropped into the 17th century Schwarzwald, you'd be far more likely to end up as wolf food or just hopelessly lost than you would be to find a gingerbread house. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know people are out there listening. Go ahead and post where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice when you wake is the silence. It's not a peaceful, gentle silence. It is a deep, heavy, and absolute quiet that seems to press in on you from all sides. It is the silence of a million ancient trees swallowing every sound. You lie on your rough bed of straw and bracken inside your small, crude hut, and the only sound you can hear is the soft thud of your own heart. Your home, if you can call it that, is a Kohlerhütte, a charcoal burner shelter. It's a temporary structure, built by your own hands from saplings, turf, and moss. The floor is packed earth, cool and damp against your bare feet as you swing your legs off the bed. The air is thick with the smell that clings to everything you own wood smoke. Not the cheerful, crackling scent of a hearth fire, but the pungent, acrid aroma of wood being slowly, deliberately suffocated. It's the smell of your trade. It's the smell of your life. You are a Kohler, a charcoal burner, a man who lives on the fringes in the deep woods of the Schwarzwald. The year is 1688. The world outside this forest is one of dukes and princes, of nascent science and burgeoning cities. But here, under the dense canopy of black firs, time moves differently. Here, the world is one of trees, stone, soot, and solitude. You pull on your stiff leather breeches and a coarse linen shirt, clothes that are permanently stained a uniform grayish black. There's no window in your hut, only a low doorway covered by a flap of cured deerskin. You push it aside and step out into the dim morning light of your clearing. The air is cool and moist, carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth. All around you, the forest stands like a wall. The fir trees are so tall and so dense that they form a near-solid barrier, their dark green boughs blocking out much of the sky. Even at midday, the light on the forest floor is a perpetual twilight. Your gaze immediately goes to the center of your clearing, to the source of the smoke and the focus of your entire existence, the mealer, the charcoal kiln. It is not a building, but a massive, carefully constructed mound, almost perfectly hemispherical, perhaps 20 feet across and 10 feet high. It looks like a giant, slumbering woodland creature. It is made of hundreds of logs of beechwood, all stacked vertically in a precise, interlocking pattern around a central chimney shaft. This mountain of wood is then completely encased in a thick layer of green turf, moss, and wet earth, sealing it against the air. For the past 4 days, a fire has been smoldering deep within the mound's core. Your job, your only job, is to keep it from truly burning. This isn't a bonfire, it's a slow, controlled, low-oxygen pyrolysis. You are cooking the wood, not burning it, slowly baking out the water, the tar, and the sap, leaving behind almost pure carbon. It's like the world's largest and slowest barbecue, a process that takes more than a week. And at the end, you're not allowed to eat the result. You walk over to the mound, your boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. A thin, yellowish-white smoke is seeping from several small vents you've poked in its surface. You crouch down, sniffing at the smoke. The smell tells you everything you need to know about the process inside. You are like a master chef, judging the state of your dish by aroma alone. It smells right. The process is going smoothly. A mistake now, too much air, A sudden flare-up could turn your entire valuable stack of wood into a worthless pile of white ash. All your weeks of labor would vanish in a pillar of flame. This constant, nerve-wracking vigilance is why you are here. It's why you live this life of ultimate social distancing. You can't leave the mealer for more than a few minutes at a time while it's active. You sleep beside it. You eat beside it. You live and breathe its rhythm as if for weeks on end. The smoldering mound is your only companion. Your breakfast is as simple as your surroundings. You shave a few slices from a dense, heavy loaf of black rye bread, hard as a rock. You chew it slowly, washing it down with cool water from a wooden bucket. If you're lucky, you might have a piece of smoked bacon or some mushrooms you foraged nearby. This morning, it is just bread. After your meal, the day's real labor begins. The current kiln might be cooking, but you must always prepare for the next. You pick up your heavy felling axe, its iron head well worn, its wooden handle smooth from your grip. You walk to the edge of the clearing and begin your work on a massive beech tree you marked yesterday. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump of your axe is a lonely sound, swallowed by the immense silence of the forest as soon as it leaves your blade. Felling the tree is back-breaking work. Sawing it into manageable lengths is worse. Splitting the logs with wedges and a sledgehammer leaves your arms trembling and your back screaming in protest. Historians still debate the social standing of the kohler. Were you seen as an independent, skilled woodsman, a vital part of the economic chain that supplied the fuel for the blacksmiths and foundries of the growing towns? Or were you a figure of suspicion, an outcast living on the absolute fringes of society, consorting with spirits, poachers, and other lawless men? You suspect the truth is a bit of both. When you haul your finished charcoal to the village, they pay you. Yes, but they also watch you with wary eyes. The children sometimes whisper and point. The forest is a place of secrets, and you, a man who lives in its very heart, are tainted by association. The pay for this grueling, lonely work is barely enough to justify the conditions. You are paid for the finished charcoal, but by the time you've paid your dues to the landowner for the right to harvest the wood, there is little left over. It's a hard life, and not one that promises wealth. You are, in essence, a freelancer in a tough market, with a terrible commute and brutally rustic living conditions. As you work, your senses are always on high alert. You notice everything. The way a deer pauses, its ears twitching, before bounding away into the undergrowth. The circular patterns the boar have rooted into the earth overnight. The shrill cry of a hawk circling high above the canopy. You have to be aware. The forest is your workshop, but it is not a safe place. There are wolves, there are bears, and there are men who are more dangerous than either. The day wears on. A long, monotonous cycle of hard labor and watchful waiting. You chop wood, you check the kiln, you haul water, you check the kiln. You sit for a moment to catch your breath, and you watch the smoke curling from the kiln. The loneliness is a physical presence. You haven't spoken a word to another human being in almost 3 weeks. You find yourself talking to the mealer, coaxing it, encouraging it. Gently now, you murmur as you adjust a plug of turf. Slow and steady, old friend. Old? As dusk begins to settle, the forest transforms. The familiar shapes of the trees dissolve into dark, indistinguishable masses. The shadows lengthen and merge, creating a wall of impenetrable blackness around the small, fire-lit circle of your clearing. The sounds of the daybirds are replaced by the unsettling noises of the night. The hoot of an owl from a high branch sounds like a mournful question. The distant snap of a twig could be a deer, or it could be something else. You cook your evening meal over a small, open fire, a safe distance from the kiln. A thin stew of foraged roots and the last of your bacon. You eat slowly, your back to the fire, staring out into the oppressive darkness. Your clearing, illuminated by the fire and the faint, hellish red glow from the vents of the mealer, feels like a tiny, fragile island of light in an ocean of black. This is when the unease always begins to creep in. It's not a specific fear, not yet. It is the deep, ancient anxiety of a solitary man in a vast and wild place. The feeling of being watched. You look out into the darkness, and you know that you are not alone. The forest is full of life. Most of it, is harmless. But as you stare into the impenetrable black between the trees, your mind begins to play tricks. You think of the stories you've heard in the village inn on your rare trips to civilization. Stories of what lurks in the deepest parts of the Schwarzwald. You finish your meal, secure your hut, and add a few logs to your small fire. You will not sleep soundly. You will wake every hour or so to check the kiln. You settle onto your straw bed, the sounds of the forest filtering through the walls of your hut. You are a man alone, surrounded by a wilderness that is both your livelihood and your prison. And as you drift into a light, restless sleep, you cannot shake the feeling that the forest is watching you, waiting. 2 weeks of near constant vigilance pass. The great mound of the Myler has ceased its breathing. The smoke, which turned from yellow to white to a faint, transparent blue, has finally stopped altogether. The process is complete. Now comes the dirtiest and most dangerous part of your job, the harvest. You begin the process of killing the kiln, carefully dousing the hot mound with bucket after bucket of water to ensure no hidden embers remain. It's a slow, hissing process that fills the air with steam and the smell of wet, hot earth. Once it has cooled enough to be safe, you take your shovel and break into the side of the mound. It's like excavating a buried treasure. You dig through the outer shell of turf and soil to reveal the treasure you have made charcoal. The logs of beechwood are gone, replaced by perfectly formed, feather-light pieces of pure carbon, still holding the shape of the original logs, but now black as night. Digging it all out is hot, filthy work. The fine black dust gets everywhere in your eyes, your nose, your lungs. By the end of it, you look less like a man and more like a soot-covered earth spirit. You carefully sort the charcoal, separating the best pieces, and load it into coarse burlap sacks. It takes you the better part of a day to haul it all on a crude wooden sledge to the edge of the forest, where you hide it carefully before making the final trip to the village. The journey to the nearby village of Hofstetten takes half a day on foot. It is always a strange transition. For the first few hours, you are in your domain, the deep woods, where the light is dim and the paths are known only to you and the animals. Then the forest begins to thin. Sunlight, bright and unfiltered, starts to pierce the canopy in wider and wider shafts. You hear new sounds, the bleating of sheep, the distant ringing of a church bell. The air smells different, losing the scent of deep, damp loam and gaining the scent of livestock and hay. You emerge from the tree line, blinking in the bright light, feeling exposed and out of place. Hofstetten is a small, typical village of the region. A cluster of dark timber-framed houses with steep roofs, all huddled around a simple stone church whose spire is the only thing that dares to challenge the height of the surrounding trees. As you walk down the main dirt track, pulling your sledge laden with sacks of charcoal, the villagers watch you. The women pause their sweeping to follow you with their eyes. The men, gathered outside the cooper's workshop, fall silent. You are a familiar yet alien sight, the man from the woods. You nod grimly, but offer no smile. You have forgotten how. Your destination is the blacksmith's forge. The rhythmic clang, clang, clang of his hammer is a sound of industry, so different from the organic silence of the forest. You find the Schmied at his anvil, his face slick with sweat, his muscular arms shaping a glowing piece of iron. He pauses, wiping his brow, and gives you a curt nod. Business. He walks over to your sledge and unties one of the sacks. He plunges a hand in, pulling out a handful of your charcoal. He inspects it with a critical eye, breaking a piece in his powerful hands, testing its brittleness, its weight. He is looking for quality charcoal that burns hot and clean, free of impurities. He seems satisfied. Without much haggling, he holds all the power here. A price is agreed upon. He disappears into his house and returns with a small, but satisfyingly heavy, leather pouch of coins. Your paycheck for nearly a month of backbreaking, isolated labor. It feels like a pittance, but it is enough. Your business concluded. You have one last stop before you must return to the solitude of the woods. The village guest house, the Black Bear. The thought of a hot meal and a mug of dark beer is the one luxury that sustains you during your long weeks of isolation. You push open the heavy oak door and are immediately enveloped by a wall of warmth, noise, and smells. The inn is dark, the ceiling low and supported by thick, smoky beams. A fire roars in a large hearth, casting flickering shadows on the faces of the patrons. The air smells of spilled beer, roasting meat, and wet wool. After the silence of the forest, the boisterous laughter and loud chatter of the villagers is a physical assault on your senses. You take a seat at a small, wobbly table in the darkest corner, as far away from the others as possible. You are here for the food, not the company. The innkeeper's wife brings you a steaming bowl of thick lentil stew with a chunk of pork floating in it, and a heavy stoneware mug of dark, smoky Rauchbier. You eat slowly, savoring every spoonful. The hot stew warms you from the inside out, a welcome change from your diet of stale bread and foraged roots. You sip the beer, its smoky flavor a taste of civilization, and you listen. The chatter of the inn is the village's news feed, a hyper-local analog version of social media. And tonight, the topic is the forest. Your forest. An old farmer with a face like a weathered map is holding court. Saw him again last night, he says, his voice raspy. Down by the bog, the Iriwish. Dancing lights. They were bobbing and weaving. Tried to lead my prize sow into the marsh? They did. A younger, burlier man, likely the blacksmith's apprentice, scoffs, and it's bog gas, old man. Nothing more. Bog gas doesn't hum a tune. A woman chimes in sharply, her knitting needles clicking in the firelight. Those are the souls of infants who died before the priest could reach them, forever trying to lure good Christian folk to a watery grave. You'd do well to show respect. The conversation shifts. The topic turns to the fictal, the little folk who are said to inhabit the deepest parts of the woods and the ancient mines. An old woman insists her recent batch of butter turned sour because she had forgotten to leave out a saucer of fresh milk on her windowsill as an offering. Her neighbor nods in vigorous agreement, telling a story of how his best axe, which he had lost in the woods, reappeared a week later on his doorstep, its edge sharper than he had ever been able to get it himself. He swears it was a reward for leaving the last of his bread on a tree stump for the good folk. Listening to them, you feel a strange mix of scorn and unease. These are the stories of people who live on the edge of the forest, who view it from the outside. You live in its very heart. You know its practical realities. And yet, you have seen things. Strange phosphorescent fungi that cast an eerie glow on moonless nights. Unexplained sounds that seem to whisper just at the edge of hearing. The tales the villagers tell are like a user's manual for a place you already inhabit. A guide filled with strange warnings and arbitrary rules that you have been unknowingly breaking for years. The old farmer speaks again, his voice lower now. It's not the little folk you need to worry about so much as their masters. The ancient ones. The ones who demand respect. This is where the academic part of a mind might wander. Historians still debate the origins of these tales of little folk. Are they distant, garbled memories of pre-Germanic tribes, smaller in stature, who were displaced into the mountains and forests by newcomers? Or are they purely psychological manifestations of the forest's mysterious and often dangerous nature? A way to personify the unpredictable luck of a woodcutter or a miner. You drain the last of your beer. The warmth of the stew is fading, and the warmth of the inn now feels like a temporary illusion. The stories have planted seeds of doubt in your mind. They have given a name and a form to the formless anxiety you always feel when the sun goes down in your clearing. Are the strange noises you hear just animals? Or are they the Wictel displeased with your presence? Are the strange lights just swamp gas? Or are they lost souls trying to lead you astray? You drop a few coins on the table, like enough for your meal and a little extra. You shoulder your now empty sacks and push the door open. The cold night air is a shock. The moon is hidden behind thick clouds, and the village is dark, save for the warm, inviting light spilling from the inn's windows. You turn your back on that light and face the path that leads back to the forest. It looks like a gaping, black mouth. The whispers from the village inn are coming with you, and they follow you like ghosts as you walk back toward the deep, waiting silence of the woods. The walk back into the forest is a descent into a different world. The cheerful, noisy warmth of the Black Bear Inn feels a lifetime away, though it has only been an hour. The path, which was just a simple track when you walked it in the daylight, has transformed into a dark, menacing tunnel through the trees. The moon is a prisoner of the clouds, and the darkness is so thick it feels like you are wading through black water. Your small lantern casts a pathetic, flickering circle of light that only seems to make the surrounding shadows deeper and more animated. Every sound is now magnified, filtered through the lens of the tavern stories. The hoot of an owl is no longer just a bird, it is an omen. The rustle of a hedgehog in the undergrowth sounds like the furtive movement of something small and unseen. The wind, sighing through the high branches of the firs, seems to whisper words you can't quite understand. You find yourself walking faster, your hand resting on the small axe tucked into your belt. Though you have no idea what you would possibly use it against. The tales have armed the darkness, given it teeth and a malicious intelligence. When you finally arrive back at your clearing, the silence that greets you is no longer a welcome, familiar companion. It is an expectant, watchful silence. The ghost of your old kiln is a black, circular scar on the earth, and your small hut looks fragile and inadequate against the immense, looming backdrop of the forest. For a moment, you feel a powerful urge to turn back, to run to the relative safety of the village, but you have no place there. This clearing, this lonely, haunted patch of dirt, is your home and your workplace. You have a new kiln to build. The next several days are consumed by the familiar, back-breaking labor of your trade. You fell the stout beech trees, the rhythmic shock of the axe traveling up your arms. You saw and split the logs, your muscles screaming in protest. You begin the careful construction of the new mailer, laying the foundation and then painstakingly stacking the logs vertically around the central chimney post. The work is grounding. The sheer physical effort of it leaves little room for fearful thoughts. In the sweat and strain, you can almost convince yourself that you are just a practical man doing a practical job. But the forest no longer allows you that simple comfort. Your senses are now tuned to a different frequency. You have, in effect, turned on all the notifications for your environment, and every small event is now a push alert to your overactive imagination. While gathering fresh turf to cover the new woodpile, you stumble upon a perfect circle of small, white-capped mushrooms, a fairy ring. Weeks ago, you would have noted it as a natural curiosity, perhaps even harvested the mushrooms if you knew them to be safe. Now you see it through the eyes of the villagers. You see a place where the little folk dance by moonlight, a portal to their underground realm, a place where a mortal should not tread. You back away slowly and find your turf elsewhere, a prickling sensation on the back of your neck. The memory of the old woman at the inn, complaining of her spoiled butter, haunts you. The Wichtel, the dwarves or gnomes, demand respect, she had said. They demand their small share. That evening, as you sit down to your meager meal of bread and dried meat, you hesitate. You look at your precious, hard-won food. Then you look out at the dark, silent forest. With a sigh that is part resignation and part self-conscious foolishness, you break off a small corner of your bread and place it on a large, mossy stone at the edge of the clearing. It's a ridiculous gesture, a waste of food, but it feels like a necessary precaution, a small tribute, a supernatural insurance policy against the unseen forces whose territory you are trespassing upon. A few days later, you venture deeper into the woods than usual, searching for a particularly straight-grained section of beech. The silence here is even deeper, the light dimmer, and then you hear it, a faint, ethereal humming, seeming to come from all around you. It's a beautiful, feminine melody, wordless and enchanting. Your first instinct is to follow it, to find the source of this unexpected beauty in your grim world. You take a few steps in the direction of the sound, pushing past a low-hanging branch, then you freeze. You remember another story, a darker one, whispered by a traveling merchant at the inn. A tale of the Holzfrau, the woodwoman, a spirit who appears as a beautiful maiden, luring lost woodsmen and charcoal burners deeper into the forest with her enchanting song, luring them until they are hopelessly lost and never seen again. They say she is beautiful from the front, but if you ever see her back, you see that she is made of nothing but hollow, rotten wood, like an old log. The humming continues, seeming to beckcock you closer. A cold dread washes over you. You turn and walk, then break into a clumsy run, not stopping until you burst back into the familiar smoky air of your own clearing, your heart hammering against your ribs. That night, you can't sleep. You sit by your small fire, staring into the flames, the memory of the humming echoing in your mind. The line between what is real and what is legend is becoming hopelessly blurred. Historians still debate the practical function of these belief systems. Were they a primitive form of environmentalism? A way to enforce respect for the forest through fear? Don't wander too far from the path. The stories warned, don't take more than you need. Respect the woods, or the woods will punish you. Or were they simply a coping mechanism for the immense psychological stress of living in such an isolating and dangerous environment? A way to give a name and a story to the creeks, groans, and shadows of the deep woods. As you sit there, you feel that both are true. The stories are a way to make sense of a world that is fundamentally beyond your control. The feeling of being watched becomes your constant companion. It's a physical sensation, a pressure on your neck, a prickling of your skin. The forest seems to have installed its own invasive and very personal form of spyware on your senses. You find yourself constantly scanning the tree line, pausing your work to listen. You see flashes of movement in your peripheral vision, a flicker of white, a patch of red, but when you turn to look, there is nothing but the endless, indifferent green and brown of the woods. You finally finish building the new mailer. It stands proud and tall in the center of your clearing, a perfect green and brown dome, ready to be brought to life. It is dusk. The sky above the canopy is a deep, bruised purple. You have prepared the kindling to drop down the central chimney, the act that will begin the long, slow burn. You pause, holding the torch in your hand, and then you hear it tap, tap, tap. The sound is sharp, clear, and close. It's the sound of a stone striking a hollow piece of wood. It comes from the dark wall of trees to your left. You freeze, every muscle in your body tensed. You extinguish your torch, plunging the clearing into near darkness, save for the faint glow of your small campfire. You wait, listening, your breath held tight in your chest. Silence. The deep, profound silence has returned. But it is different now. It is not empty. The sound, so deliberate, so clearly a signal, has filled the silence with a terrifying presence. It was not an animal. It was a communication. A knock on the door of your small, fragile world. You look at the massive, dark kiln you have just built. You look at the impenetrable wall of trees that surrounds you. You are trapped here for at least another 2 weeks, alone with your smoldering fire and the unseen inhabitants of the forest, who have just made it very clear that they know you are here. The triple tap echoes in the silence of the clearing, a sound so deliberate and unnatural that it freezes the blood in your veins. You crouch beside your unlit kiln, torch extinguished, every muscle tensed. The forest, which just a moment ago was filled with the familiar, gentle sounds of the coming night, is now utterly unnervingly silent. It is the silence of a held breath. You wait. You listen so hard your ears ache. Nothing. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The silence itself becomes a form of pressure. Was it a woodpecker? A falling branch striking a hollow log in a strange rhythm? Your rational mind, the mind of a practical woodsman, scrambles for an explanation. But your gut, primal and soaked in the tavern tales you now regret hearing, knows better. That was not a sound of nature. That was a signal. You realize you have a choice. You can cower in your hut until dawn, letting the fear win. Or you can do the job you are here to do, choosing action over paralysis. You slowly, deliberately, relight your torch. The sudden flare of light feels both like a comfort and a beacon, announcing your presence to whatever is watching from the darkness. With a hand that is not quite steady, you walk to the chimney of the mealer and drop the burning brand inside. You hear the kindling catch with a soft whoosh. A thin plume of white smoke begins to curl from the top of the kiln a few moments later. The process has begun. For better or worse, you are now committed. You have lit a fire in the heart of a forest that has just warned you of its displeasure. The first few days of tending the new kiln are a special kind of torment. Your paranoia is a constant, feverish hum beneath your skin. Every waking moment is spent in a state of hypervigilance. You patrol the perimeter of your clearing, your hand never far from your axe. You sleep in short, fitful bursts, waking at the slightest sound. Your heart pounding. The vague, formless anxiety of before has been replaced by a sharp, specific dread. The forest is no longer just a place of unseen, mischievous spirits. It feels like it now harbors something with a more conscious and malevolent intelligence. On the fourth day, while gathering fallen wood for your small cooking fire, you wander slightly farther from your clearing than usual. You are following a line of promisingly dry beech branches when you look up and stop dead. You see a tree? It's an ancient silver fir, one of the giants of this part of the forest. Its trunk wider than you are tall. You have seen it 1,000 times. But today you see something you've never noticed before. About 15 feet up the trunk, far higher than a man could easily reach without a ladder. A large patch of bark has been stripped away. The pale, naked wood beneath is a stark wound against the dark. Rough bark. Carved into this exposed wood is a symbol, a simple circle with a cross drawn through it. It is crude, but clearly man-made, or man-like. The sight of it, so high up, so deliberate, sends a chill down your spine. It feels like a signpost, a territorial marking. It's the forest's version of a stark, aggressive no trespassing sign. And you have been living in its front yard for years, staring at the strange symbol. A memory surfaces, swimming up from the beery haze of the inn. It's not one of the main stories, not the tales of the victual that everyone was loudly debating. It was a quieter story, told by a grim, solitary fur trapper who sat alone in the corner. Much like yourself. He spoke in a low voice, to no one in particular, his eyes fixed on the fire. A story the other patrons had ignored as the ramblings of a lonely, woods-crazed drunk. The story of Der Grossman, the tall man. The legend, as the trapper told it, is the stuff of childhood nightmares. It is the reason children are warned never to wander too far into the woods after dusk. The Grossman is said to be the ancient, spectral king of the forest. He is not a spirit of flesh and blood, but something older, made of shadow and fear. He is described as being unnaturally tall and thin, with limbs that are too long, that bend at the wrong angles. He is often seen wearing the dark, severe clothing of a nobleman from a bygone era. But his appearance is a mockery of civility. His face, they say, is the worst part. Some tales claim it is a featureless, pale white blur, like a smoothed-over piece of wood. Others say it has no features at all, just an empty space. And some of the oldest, darkest tales say it has two burning white eyes. This figure is the timeless archetype of the boogeyman, the ancestor to the modern urban legend of the Slender Man. He stalks the deepest parts of the woods, moving with an unnerving silence. He is a guardian, of a sort, a protector of the forest who despises the intrusion of men. He doesn't attack with claw or tooth. He attacks the mind. To see him is to be marked by a terror so profound that it can drive a person mad. Children who are disobedient and wander off are his favorite prey. He doesn't kill them, the legend says. He simply leads them away, and they are never, ever seen again. The trapper had said the Grossman leaves signs, warnings on the trees for those wise enough to read them. He carves symbols to mark his territory. You look from the crudely carved symbol on the towering fir tree back towards your clearing, towards the plume of smoke rising from your kiln. The tapping sound from a few nights ago suddenly clicks into place with horrifying clarity. It wasn't a warning. It was a knock on the door from a very, very unwelcome landlord. You suddenly wish, with a desperate intensity, that you had paid more attention to the trapper's story at the inn, that you had bought him another beer and asked him more. What you dismissed as drunken ramblings now feels like a critically important threat assessment that you have failed to heed. As you walk back to your clearing, the forest itself has physically changed in your perception. It has become a forest of vertical lines. Every tall, slender fir tree, every gaunt, leafless birch, looks like a figure standing at the edge of your vision. The spaces between the trees become sources of terror. You scan them constantly, looking for a shape that is too tall, too thin, too dark. The way the high branches of the firs sway and creak in the wind no longer sounds like wood rubbing against wood. It sounds like the groaning of long, impossibly spindly limbs. The psychological weight of this new fear is immense. The mischievous Victual or the seductive Holzfrau were one thing. They operated by a set of rules, however strange. Leave an offering, don't follow the song, and you might be safe. The Grossman feels different. It feels like a predator. It feels like pure, silent, patient malice. Historians still debate the psychological origins of such figures. Are they merely a personification of natural dangers, the fear of getting lost? The disorienting effect of the dense woods? The real threat of predators like wolves? Or do they represent something deeper? A primal fear of the other, the wild man, the hermit, the outcast who lives beyond the safety and laws of the village community. Standing in your clearing, you don't care about the academic distinctions. All you know is that the fear is real. That evening, as dusk bleeds into the sky, you do not light your cooking fire. You are afraid the light will attract unwanted attention. You eat your bread cold, huddled in the doorway of your hut, watching the woods. The clearing no longer feels like your small, safe island. It feels like a baited trap. Your kiln, the source of your livelihood, is a smoking beacon, announcing your stubborn, unwelcome presence to the ancient king of the woods. The vague fear of unseen things has now coalesced into a single, terrifying image. A tall, thin man in black, standing just beyond the firelight. His featureless face turned towards you. You stare into the deep, dark spaces between the trees, straining your eyes until they water. And you feel, with a cold certainty that settles deep in your bones, that he is doing the very same thing. He is watching you right now. The days following your discovery of the marked tree are a slow descent into a waking nightmare. Sleep offers no escape, as it only comes in short, shallow, and dream-haunted bursts. You live in a state of perpetual, high-strung exhaustion. Every creak of a branch in the wind is the footstep of the tall man. Every elongated shadow cast by the setting sun is his form, detaching itself from the woods. Your work at the kiln continues on instinct, your body performing the familiar tasks of checking vents and monitoring the smoke, while your mind is entirely consumed with scanning the dark, silent perimeter of your clearing. You have been so focused on looking up, searching the tall, vertical spaces between the trees for a spectral horror, that you have almost forgotten that danger can also come from below. Your meager supply of smoked meat is gone. The last of your hard, black bread is crumbling into dust. Hunger, a raw and practical force, finally gnaws through the thick fog of your supernatural fear. You know you have no choice. You must check the line of snares you set last week. It's a half-day's walk to check the full line. A journey that will take you away from the relative, perceived safety of your clearing and deep into the unmonitored woods. The thought makes your stomach clench with a fear that has nothing to do with hunger. You force yourself to go. You take your sharpest skinning knife and your small axe, feeble comforts against the terrors your mind has conjured. As you step out of the clearing and onto the narrow game trail, you feel as though you are stepping off a cliff. The forest seems quieter, more watchful than ever. You try to focus on the task at hand, on reading the signs of the forest floor, a broken twig, a deer track in the mud. But your senses are hopelessly compromised. Your ears are straining for a whisper or a footstep, and your eyes are constantly flicking upwards, scanning the tall trunks for a shape that doesn't belong. Your obsessive focus on the legendary threat has completely wrecked your situational awareness for the real one. The first two snares you check are empty, the bait untouched. The third has been sprung, the supple sapling snapped back into its upright position. The noose empty? A clever fox. Most likely. You curse under your breath and take the time to reset it, your fingers fumbling, your eyes scanning the dense woods around you. The simple, practical task feels fraught with a new and terrible urgency. You move on, deeper now into a part of the forest dominated by thickets of thorny bushes and ancient, gnarled oaks. You are approaching the fourth snare, which you had set near a muddy wallow you know the boar frequent. As you push aside a low-hanging branch, you hear it. It is not a whisper. It is not a tap. It is a sudden, explosive snort, thick with aggression, coming from the thicket directly to your right. It is immediately followed by a violent crashing sound, as a large body bulldozes its way through the undergrowth. There is no time for fear to build. There is only a single, pure, white-hot spike of adrenaline. You don't even have time to turn your head. A shape of dark, bristly hair and pure muscle bursts from the bushes. A wild boar. It is a massive male, its shoulders thick as a barrel, its small, hate-filled eyes fixed on you. A low growl rumbles in its chest, and you see the wicked, yellowed curve of its tusks. The world narrows to this single, charging point of violence. Thought ceases, instinct screams. You drop your axe and you run. Pure, blind panic fuels your legs. You sprint, leaping over fallen logs, your breath tearing at your lungs. You can hear it behind you, shockingly fast, its heavy hooves pounding the soft earth, its angry grunts seeming to be right at your heels. You don't dare look back. Your eyes scan wildly for an escape. Ahead, a large, old oak tree with a low-hanging branch offers your only hope. You pour every last ounce of your strength into a final, Desperate burst of speed. You reach the tree, leap, and grab for the branch. Your fingers scraping, failing to find a purchase. You fall to your knees, the boar just feet away. With another surge of terror, you jump again, this time finding a solid grip. You haul yourself up, your muscles screaming, just as the boar smashes headfirst into the trunk of the tree below you. The impact shudders through the entire tree. The beast lets out a furious squeal, its tusks gouging deep furrows into the bark right where your legs had been a second before. You scramble higher, clinging to the rough bark of the trunk, your heart trying to hammer its way out of your chest. The boar circles the base of the tree, its head low, snorting and stamping its feet. It glares up at you with a primal, uncomplicated fury. It tries to gore the tree again, then paces back and forth. A 400-pound engine of rage. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, its anger seems to subside. With a final, disgusted snort, it turns and trots away, melting back into the undergrowth as suddenly as it appeared. You don't move. You stay in the tree, clinging to your branch, for a long time. You wait until the silence of the forest has returned, until the only sound is the frantic pounding of your own blood in your ears. Slowly, shakily, you climb down. Your legs give way as soon as your feet touch the ground, and you slide down the trunk to sit in a heap on the forest floor. The reality of what just happened washes over you. You were so consumed with staring into the shadows, searching for a tall, thin man who may or may not exist, that you nearly met your end in the most brutal and mundane way imaginable. You almost ended up on the menu for a very real monster. A simple beast of flesh and bone driven by territorial rage. It's a grimly ironic thought. For weeks, you have been living in a slow-burn psychological horror film of your own making, only to be nearly killed by a sudden, loud, and very effective jump scare. As the adrenaline begins to fade, a new thought, cold and sharp, cuts through your relief. The forest, you now understand with perfect clarity, has two sets of teeth. There are the imagined ones, the ones that bite at your sanity in the lonely hours of the night. And then there are the real ones, the tusks and claws and fangs that can rip your life away in a bloody instant. Historians still debate how directly the real dangers of the wilderness influence the specific characteristics of its folkloric monsters. Is a troll simply a personification of a deadly rock slide? Is a ravenous wolf the kernel of truth in the werewolf legend? And is a creature like the Grossman just a way to conceptualize the slow, creeping, paralyzing fear of getting lost and starving? A far more common fate for a woodsman than being abducted by a spirit. Sitting at the base of the tree, looking at the deep gouges in the bark, you feel the truth of it. The legends are a map for the fear, a way to give it a name. But the relief is short-lived. As your breathing returns to normal, the other fear, the quiet one, creeps back in from the edges of your mind. The boar was real, the danger was real, but what flushed it from the thicket with such sudden violence? Was it simply your own clumsy approach, or was something else moving through the woods? Something large and silent, driving the animals before it in a state of panic. The encounter with a real danger hasn't erased the supernatural one. It has only made the forest feel more complex, more chaotic, more deeply and utterly menacing. You get to your feet, abandoning your axe and the rest of your snare line, and begin the long, trembling walk back to your clearing. You are a man caught between two horrors, the one in your mind and the one in the world. And as you look at the dark, silent wall of trees that surrounds you, you have no idea which one to fear more. You return to your clearing, your body trembling with the aftershocks of adrenaline, your mind a turbulent sea of fear. The encounter with the boar has left you with more than just a few scrapes and a racing heart. It has left you disarmed. Your felling axe is your most crucial tool. The very symbol of your trade and your ability to impose your will upon the forest lies abandoned somewhere near the muddy wallow. Without it, you are useless. Your current kiln will finish its burn in a week or so, and then you will be stranded, unable to prepare the next batch, unable to work, unable to earn the coins needed for your meager existence. A new kind of desperation sets in, a practical dread that is sharper and more immediate than the ghostly fears that haunt your nights. You need an axe. The village of Hofsteden is a half-day's walk, but the blacksmith's prices for new tools are steep. Your small pouch of coins from the last sale would barely cover it. Then, A memory surfaces. Another story from the inn. Not a tale of monsters, but of men. The villagers had spoken of a man even more isolated than you. A reclusive master craftsman who lived somewhere in the deep western woods. An eccentric old clockmaker. They said he was strange, that he talked to the trees, but that his skill with wood and intricate mechanisms was unparalleled. A man like that, a man who works with wood in such a fine way, must surely have tool. He might have a spare axe, or be able to forge or repair one. It is a slim hope, a desperate plan born of a desperate situation. You decide to risk it. You will seek out the clockmaker. It's the 17th century equivalent of searching for a highly specialized artisan on some hyper-local, off-the-grid version of Etsy. The journey takes you into a part of the forest you normally avoid. The game trails here are less distinct, the woods older and more primal. The canopy is thicker, plunging the forest floor into a deeper twilight. The silence is heavier. Here, you feel truly alien, a trespasser in a place that has not known the bite of a charcoal burner's axe for generations. Your fear of the Grossman returns with a vengeance. Every tall, dark tree seems to watch you pass, and you can't shake the feeling that you are walking deeper into his domain. After hours of walking, guided only by the vague directions you overheard at the inn, you almost miss it. Tucked into a small, unnaturally neat clearing is a small hut. It is expertly built, with tight-fitting logs and a tidy roof of wooden shingles, a world away from your own crude shelter. And then you hear it. A sound so utterly out of place in the deep woods that it stops you in your tracks. Ticking. It is not one tick, but 100, 1,000. A cacophony of clicks, whirs, and ticks, all falling at different rhythms, creating a restless, chaotic sea of sound. It is the most stressful and least relaxing white noise machine ever invented. You approach the hut cautiously, the sound growing louder, more overwhelming. You can now distinguish individual ticks within the maddening chorus. You rap your knuckles on the solid wood of the door. The ticking inside continues unabated. For a moment, you wonder if anyone is home. Then, the door swings inward with a silent, well-oiled movement. An old man stands there. He is thin and wiry, with a long white beard that seems to contain more sawdust than hair. But it is his eyes that capture you. They are a pale, washed-out blue, and they are sharp, intelligent, and unblinking. They seem to take in your entire state, your sooty clothes, your fearful posture in a single penetrating glance. "A curler," he says, his voice a dry rustle, like dry leaves skittering across stone. "You are far from your smoke. Come in." He steps aside, and you enter his world. The sight is staggering. The inside of the small hut is a forest of clocks. They cover every wall, from floor to ceiling. They sit on shelves. They hang from the beams. There are dozens, perhaps hundreds of them. Intricately carved cuckoo clocks, quail clocks with tiny painted birds, simple, elegant pendulum clocks with polished wooden faces. And they are all running. The air is alive with their manic, uncoordinated ticking. In the center of the room is a workbench, covered not with heavy axes and wedges, but with tiny, delicate tools files, saws and calipers, and a beautiful, complex assembly of interlocking wooden gears. It is the inner workings of a clock, a Waagbalkenur. "You lost your axe," the old man states. "It is not a question." You nod, unnerved, a wild boar. The clockmaker shows no interest in the boar, and he dismisses the real physical danger with a wave of his thin hand. The boar is just a boar, a beast of blood and instinct. What you should fear is the beast of shadow and silence. What have you done to disturb the neighbors? Charcoal burner? The question throws you off. Neighbors, there are no other people for miles. The old man smiles. A thin, humorless crack in his wrinkled face. The people with roots for feet and leaves for hair. The people with stone for bones who sleep underground. The ones who demand their portion. You have been leaving their portion, have you not? He is talking about the forest spirits, the Wichtel, as if they were grumpy farmers in the next valley. His casual acceptance of their existence is more terrifying than any drunken tavern tale. He gestures to his workbench. "The wood tells me the stories. The forest is a clock, you see? It has its own rhythm, its own gears. Most men like you just burn the wood. You listen only to its destruction. I listen to its voice. I give it a new one, a voice of time. He picks up a tiny, perfectly carved wooden bird. This little one will tell a man when he is late for his supper. A very important job. Historians still debate the role of these isolated, eccentric figures in rural communities. Were they revered as master artisans, their skills bordering on the magical? Were they feared as practitioners of strange arts? Men who had traded their sanity for a secret knowledge of the woods? Or were they simply tolerated as madmen, harmless hermits living outside the bounds of normal society? Looking at this man, you feel all three are true. You explain that you need an axe, that you can trade a full load of finished charcoal for one. The old man shakes his head. He walks over to a dark corner and returns with a felling axe. It is old, the handle worn smooth with use, but the head is good, solid iron. The tall man does not like the sound of chopping, he says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It disturbs his walks, but he understands a man must work. The little folk, however, they hear the disrespect. They see a man who takes and does not give. His cryptic advice feels like the forest's own terrible, unhelpful FAQ section. Suddenly, a clock on the wall lets out a sharp whir, and a small, painted wooden door bursts open. A tiny cuckoo bird on a wire pops out and lets out a loud, clear, cuckoo. You jump, startled. Before you can recover, another clock follows suit, and another, and another. The hour has struck. The room erupts in an insane, deafening chorus of cuckoos, whistles, whirs, and chirps. Dozens of tiny wooden birds burst from their prisons, screaming the time at you from all directions. The sound is a cheerful, mechanical madness. Through it all, the old clockmaker does not even flinch. He simply stands there, a thin smile on his face, waiting for the cacophony to end. When the last cuckoo has sounded and silence begins to reclaim the room, leaving only the frantic ticking, he holds the axe out to you. Take it, he says. I will not take your charcoal. Your promise is your payment. Promise me you will listen to the forest. Leave the offering. Heed the knock on the door. Do not follow the song, and stay out of his way. You take the axe. Its weight a solid, comforting reality in your hands. His way you ask, though you already know the answer. The clockmaker's pale blue eyes seem to look right through you. The king of the woods? The one who wears the shadows? Der Grossmann. You mutter your thanks and back out of the hut. Unable to leave fast enough? You do not run, but you walk with a speed and purpose that borders on it. The sound of 1,000 ticking clocks fades behind you, but the old man's words, his casual confirmation of your deepest fears, echo in your mind. You arrive back at your clearing as dusk falls, the new axe heavy in your hand. The encounter has not calmed you. It has terrified you in a new and profound way. You came seeking a tool from a man, and you received a warning from an oracle. That old man, who has survived a lifetime in this place, does not think the legends are real. He knows they are. He lives his life by their rules, building a strange, ticking fortress of order against the chaotic, ancient power of the forest. The woods around you no longer seem merely haunted. They feel managed, and you, the charcoal burner, are just a minor, troublesome tenant, living on borrowed time at the pleasure of a very tall, very silent landlord. You return to your clearing with the clockmaker's axe in one hand and his heavy, cryptic warnings in the other. The axe feels solid and real, a comfort. The warnings feel like a cold stone in your gut. For the next several days, you exist in a new state of tense, ritualistic paranoia. You are scrupulous in your new duties. Every morning, you leave a small piece of your bread on the mossy stone for the victual. When you fell a tree with your new axe, you find yourself murmuring a quiet apology to the forest spirit within it. You work quietly, trying to minimize the sound of your chopping, ever mindful of the tall man who does not like the sound. You have accepted the forest's unwritten rules, hoping that by paying this tax of superstition, you might be left in peace. But the forest does not seem interested in peace. After a week of this tense routine, the air begins to change. A strange, oppressive stillness falls over your clearing. The birds, usually a constant source of chatter, fall silent. The air grows thick, heavy, and humid, making each breath feel like you are drinking water. You look up, and through the small gaps in the canopy, you see the sky is not blue, but a bruised yellowish gray. It's as if the entire world has had a terrible, gloomy filter applied to it, draining the life from the colors, and the forest is holding its breath, waiting. The first clap of thunder is not a distant rumble. It is a sudden, violent crack that seems to split the sky directly over your head. It is so loud, so close, that the ground beneath your feet shudders. You flinch, dropping the log you were carrying. A moment of stunned silence follows, and then the heavens open. The rain does not begin, it attacks. A solid, roaring wall of water smashes down upon the forest, instantly turning the dry earth of your clearing into a slick, running sheet of mud. The sound is deafening, a constant, furious roar that drowns out all other thought. Within seconds, you are soaked to the bone, your thin linen shirt clinging to you like a second skin, offering no protection. Then comes the wind. It doesn't howl, it shrieks. It tears through the high branches of the firs with a sound like 1,000 tormented souls. A sound so eerily human in its agony that the hair on your arms stands on end. You retreat to the relative shelter of your hut, but it offers little comfort. The flimsy structure groans and shudders under the assault, and you fear it might be torn apart at any moment. The storm's sound effects are far too realistic, and there is no way to turn down the volume. Through the open flap of your hut, you watch the forest descend into chaos. The world becomes a strobing black and white nightmare. A brilliant, searing flash of lightning illuminates the clearing for a split second, freezing the thrashing trees in a skeletal, monstrous pose. And then, plunging darkness, made even deeper by the afterimage burned into your retinas. In one of those flashes, the tall, gaunt fir tree with the strange marking is lit in stark relief. For a heart-stopping instant, its shape is not that of a tree, but of a tall, thin man, his branch-like arms reaching for the sky. The line between what is real and what your terrified mind is creating has been completely erased. The shriek of the wind is the scream of the Grossman. The drumming of the torrential rain on your roof is the insistent, terrifying tapping you heard before, now amplified 1,000 times. The forest is no longer a passive, watchful entity. It has become an active, enraged antagonist. It is trying to get in. You think of the old tales of Donar, the thunder god, riding his goat-drawn chariot across the sky, hurling his hammer. This feels like that. A war between gods being waged directly above your head. And you are nothing but a terrified insect caught in the crossfire. A new fear, a practical one, cuts through your supernatural terror. Your mailer. You peer out through the rain and see that the deluge is causing a disaster. The carefully packed earthen shell of the kiln is eroding, turning into rivers of mud that run down its sides. As you watch, a large section of the turf slumps and collapses, exposing the hot, smoldering wood beneath to the direct, hammering force of the rain. A great cloud of steam erupts with a furious hiss. If too much water gets into the core, it will extinguish the slow fire. Weeks of work, your entire livelihood, will be ruined, turned into a worthless pile of wet, half-cooked wood. You have to act. Cursing your fate, you grab your shovel and plunge out into the heart of the storm. The wind nearly rips the shovel from your hands. The rain is so heavy it feels like being pelted with stones. You are fighting a losing battle. Scooping up thick, heavy mud and trying to plaster it back onto the collapsing side of the kiln, only to have the rain wash it away moments later. It is the worst, most high stakes, and most desperate home repair job imaginable. You're trying to patch a mountain of earth while the sky itself tries to tear it down. During this frantic struggle, you begin to wonder about the nature of the storm itself. Historians in a future time may debate how pre-modern people distinguished between the natural and the supernatural. Was a lightning strike just a dangerous event? Or was it a direct, purposeful act by a vengeful spirit? As a brilliant flash of lightning strikes a tree on the far side of your clearing, splitting it with a sound like the world cracking in two, you do not have the luxury of academic debate. This feels personal. This feels aimed. The forest is angry, and it is using the storm as its weapon. You slip and fall to your knees in the thick, sucking mud, your body trembling with cold and exhaustion. You are losing. The kiln is slumping, hissing, dying. You push your wet hair out of your eyes and look up, defeated. And in the next flash of lightning, you see it. Across the clearing, standing just inside the tree line, is a shape. It is tall and unnaturally thin. It is dark against the chaos of the storm. It is perfectly, unnervingly still, even as the trees around it are thrashing wildly in the wind. The flash lasts only a second, maybe two, but the image is burned into your mind with absolute clarity. It is not a tree. It is not a trick of the light. The world plunges back into darkness. You are staring at the spot where it stood, your heart frozen in your chest. Was it real? Was it a phantom created by your fear and the strobing light you don't know? And the not knowing is the purest form of terror. The storm rages on, its fury unabated. You are on your knees in the mud, soaked, shivering, and utterly defeated. You look from your dying kiln, its smoke now turning to pathetic wisps of steam, to the dark wall of trees that conceals either a figment of your imagination or an ancient horror that is patiently watching you fall apart. The forest has turned against you, and it is winning. The storm eventually exhausts itself. The violent, roaring deluge softens to a steady drumming, then to a drizzle, and finally, to a dripping, eerie silence. The wind that shrieked like a banshee sighs its last and is gone. A gray, washed-out dawn begins to filter through the battered canopy, revealing the devastation the night has wrought. You push yourself up from the mud, your body a single agonizing ache of cold and exhaustion. You look around your clearing, and a wave of utter hopelessness washes over you. It is a scene of total ruin. Your small hut has partially collapsed, one wall caved in. Your meager possessions are scattered and soaked. But the true devastation lies at the center of the clearing. Your mylar, the product of weeks of toil. The focus of your entire existence is a write-off. It is a sad, slumped, steaming heap of mud and half-burnt wood, a failed startup that has become a literal washout. All that work, all that vigilance, destroyed in a single night of fury. In the cold, gray light of morning, the fear from the night before has not subsided. It has settled, transforming from a sharp, frantic terror into a cold, hard certainty. The lightning flash, the still, dark shape at the tree line, it feels more real now, not less. The storm was not random. It was an attack. The forest, the legends, the tall man. They are real, and they want you gone. The last thread of your resilience snaps. There is no reason to stay here. There is no kiln to tend, no work to be done, no livelihood to salvage. There is only a profound, soul-deep certainty that if you spend another night in this place, you will not see the dawn. You will flee. You will abandon it all and run towards the memory of warmth and people, towards the village of Hofstetten. You salvage what little you can. The clockmaker's axe, heavy and solid in your hand. Your skinning knife, a small, forgotten pouch of dried meat, now damp but still edible. You don't even look back at your collapsed hut or the wreck of your kiln. There is nothing left for you here but ghosts. You turn your back on the clearing that has been your prison for so long and plunge into the woods. Your only thought to put as much distance between you and that place as possible. You try to find the familiar game trail that leads southeast towards the village. But the forest is a changed world. The path is gone, completely washed away in places, buried under a thick layer of mud and fallen leaves in others. A massive fir tree, uprooted by the wind, lies across the way, its tangled roots forming an impassable wall of earth and wood. You are forced to detour, to push your way through thick, unfamiliar undergrowth, hoping to find the path again on the other side. But you never do. The hours begin to blur into a single, monotonous struggle. The forest floor is a treacherous landscape of sucking mud, hidden roots, and slick, moss-covered stones. The sky remains a uniform, featureless gray, the sun a hidden mystery, offering no clue as to your direction. You try to navigate by instinct, by the faint memories of the landscape. You search for the landmarks. You know the creek with the smooth, gray stones, the ancient oak with the split trunk, the small, rocky outcrop that looks like a snarling wolf. You find the creek, but it is no longer the gentle stream you remember. It is a swollen, brown, raging torrent, tearing at its banks. It is impassable. You are forced to turn and follow its course, hoping to find a place to cross, taking you further and further from your intended route. You search for the split oak, but when you find the place where it should be, there is only a splintered, lightning-scorched stump. The storm has erased your map. Your internal compass, your woodsman's intuition, is spinning uselessly, in desperate need of a full system reboot. The forest itself seems to conspire against you. Every section of woods looks identical to the last, a relentless, repeating pattern of tall, dark firs and damp, green undergrowth. It feels like the landscape is actively rearranging itself when you're not looking. A living, hostile escape room designed to keep you trapped within its walls. Historians and psychologists still debate the map-making function of the human brain, how it processes familiar environments, and how quickly that function breaks down under stress in a monotonous landscape like a dense forest. Does the world truly seem to shift and repeat itself? Or does our own perception of it simply collapse, leaving us walking in circles, convinced we are moving in a straight line to you? This academic distinction is meaningless. All you know is that you have been walking for what feels like an eternity, and the woods have not changed. You are a fly trapped in amber. A cold, creeping dread begins to seep into your bones, more chilling than the damp air. You are lost. Truly. Hopelessly lost. You stop, leaning against a tree to catch your breath, and realize you have no idea which direction you came from, and no idea which way to go. You could be walking in circles. You could be heading deeper into the heart of the forest, away from any hope of rescue. You think, for a moment, of the clockmaker. Could you find his hut again? The thought is dismissed as soon as it appears. You had followed a half-remembered path to find him, and now, with the world turned upside down, you have no hope of retracing your steps. His strange, ordered world of ticking and whirring is as lost to you as the village. You force yourself to move on, picking a direction at random. Hope is a dwindling resource. As the day wears on, the gray light begins to thin, to weaken. A subtle purple hue begins to taint the edges of the sky, visible through the canopy. The sun is setting. Panic, cold and sharp, begins to set in. To be lost in the daylight is a problem. To be lost in the darkness, in this forest, after what you have seen and what you have imagined, is a death sentence. The fading light is a countdown. You stumble on, your movements growing clumsy with fatigue and fear. Through the trees ahead, you see a faint, flickering light, a lamp, a campfire. Hope, fierce and desperate, surges through you. You crash through the undergrowth, calling out, your voice a raw croak. Hello, is anyone there? You burst into a small clearing and stop, your hope turning to ash in your mouth. The light is not from a lamp. It is a pale, greenish phosphorescence emanating from a large, rotten log covered in glowing fungus. The Irvish? The corpse lights the villagers spoke of. The forest is not helping you. It is mocking you, dangling a false hope before you and then snatching it away. You sink to your knees, your head in your hands. The last of the light bleeds from the sky. The world dissolves into shades of gray, then into an absolute, impenetrable blackness. You are alone, exhausted, without fire or shelter. You can't go forward, you can't go back. There is nothing to do but wait, to listen to the sounds of the night beginning around you, to the rustles and snaps in the undergrowth. You listen for the hoot of an owl, the cry of a fox. You listen for the sound of a footstep. You listen for a tap on a hollow tree. You are a single, terrified point of life in an ocean of darkness. And you have the sudden, crushing certainty that the forest, having led you this far, has absolutely no intention of ever letting you go. The night deepens. The darkness beneath the dense canopy of the black forest is not merely an absence of light. It is a physical presence. It is a thick, cold, and suffocating blanket that smothers sound and reason. You are huddled at the base of a colossal fir tree, its massive trunk offering the illusion of shelter, its rough bark digging into your back. Every rational thought has fled, leaving only the raw, primal instincts of a cornered animal. You fight to stay awake, knowing that sleep is a luxury you cannot afford. To sleep is to become deaf and blind in a world where your survival depends entirely on your senses. You are cold. A deep, penetrating cold has settled into your bones, a product of the damp earth seeping through your clothes and the sheer exhaustion that has hollowed you out. Hunger is a dull, persistent ache in your belly, but these physical discomforts are distant, drowned out by the overwhelming force of your fear. Your world has shrunk to the small circle of your immediate senses. You listen. The forest at night is never truly silent. There is the sighing of the wind in the high branches, the drip, drip, drip of water from the storm-soaked leaves, the frantic skittering of a mouse in the undergrowth. But your ears are straining for other sounds, for the ones that do not belong. Every snap of a twig is a footstep. Every groan of a tree branch is the moan of something in pain or in anger. Your mind takes these ordinary sounds and twists them into a symphony of menace. You stare into the impenetrable darkness, trying to force your eyes to make sense of the chaos of shapes. The darkness plays tricks. The familiar form of a gnarled root becomes a crouching beast. The pale surface of a birch tree seems to resolve into a leering face before dissolving back into bark. You know it is your mind, frayed by stress and sleep deprivation, that is creating these phantoms. But knowing this does not make them any less real. You clutch the handle of the clockmaker's axe, its weight in your lap a small, cold point of contact with the world of solid things. You try to remember a prayer from your childhood, a plea for protection, but the words are a jumbled mess in your head. The god of the village church seems very far away from this ancient pagan darkness. Here there are older, darker gods, and you fear you have trespassed in their cathedral. Hours pass, or maybe it is only minutes. Time has lost its meaning. There is only the waiting, the cold, the dark, and then you hear it. It is different from the other sounds. It is a slow, rhythmic drag, scrape, as if something heavy, something reluctant, is being pulled through the wet leaves and mud. It is to your left, perhaps 100 feet away. It stops. You hold your breath, straining to hear more. Silence. Then again. Drag, scrape. It is closer now. Your heart hammers against your ribs. A frantic, trapped bird? Whatever is making that sound is large, and it is moving without any attempt at stealth. You flatten yourself against the tree trunk, trying to make yourself smaller, trying to melt into the shadows. You peer in the direction of the sound, your eyes wide, desperate to pierce the gloom. And that is when you first see it. It is not a sudden appearance, it is a slow dawning, a horrifying realization. You are looking at a patch of darkness between two towering trees, and you realize with a jolt of pure ice in your veins that this patch of darkness is darker than the surrounding night. It is a hole in the world, a shape that absorbs what little starlight filters through the canopy. It is a silhouette. As you stare, your mind refusing to accept what your eyes are telling it. The shape detaches itself from the background. It moves. And it is tall. Taller than any man has a right to be. It is thin. Unnaturally so. A stark, vertical line of black against the gray black of the trees. It moves with a slow, fluid grace that is utterly wrong, gliding over the uneven forest floor without a sound. The scraping noise has stopped. Now, there is only this silent, impossible motion. It is him. Der Grossmann. Everything the haunted-eyed trapper at the inn described, everything your deepest fears have whispered to you, is standing right there. The creature, the man, the spirit, you don't know what to call it, stops about 50 feet away, partially obscured by the trunk of another tree. It is simply standing there, motionless. You are frozen, every muscle locked. You can't breathe. You can't scream. The sound is trapped in your throat, a solid ball of terror. Folklorists and historians in a saner, brighter future will debate the nature of such encounters. Are they vivid hallucinations brought on by extreme physical and psychological distress? Are they waking nightmares, where the archetypal fears of a culture are given terrifying form and projected onto the external world? Or are they something else? A glimpse into a reality that exists just outside the boundaries of human comprehension? You do not have the luxury of such questions. For you, this is not a hallucination. This is not a dream. The thing standing before you is more real than the tree at your back, more real than the axe in your lap. Its presence is a weight, a pressure that makes the air feel thick and hard to breathe, as if it senses your attention. The tall, dark shape turns its upper body slowly, deliberately, in your direction. The movement is stiff, jerky, like a marionette with tangled strings. And you see the space where its face should be. It is a pale, smooth, oval blur, featureless and utterly blank. There are no eyes, no nose, no mouth. But you feel its gaze. You feel it lock onto you. A cold, focused attention that seems to pierce your very soul. It sees you. It knows you are there. The world seems to tilt. The sounds of the forest, the dripping water, the wind. It all fades into a low, buzzing hum inside your own skull. Your mind, unable to contain the sheer logical impossibility of what you are seeing, begins to shatter. You feel a profound sense of detachment, as if you are floating outside your own body, watching a terrified, pathetic man huddle at the base of a tree. The creature takes a step toward you. It makes no sound. One of its long, spindly legs moves forward, followed by the other. The motion is slow, unhurried, and filled with an unbearable menace. It is not rushing. It has all the time in the world. Another step, you are no longer in control. Your body is a prison of frozen muscle. The axe feels impossibly heavy. Your eyes are locked on the pale, featureless face, on the tall, dark shape that is slowly, silently, closing the distance. The darkness at the edge of your vision begins to crawl inward, a black tide rising to claim you. The last coherent thought that flickers through your fragmenting mind is that the clockmaker was wrong. You tried to heed the warnings. You tried to stay out of his way, but you understand now. The entire forest is his way, and you are in it. The figure takes another step, and another. The world dissolves into a meaningless hum and a single terrifying image of a tall, dark shape, coming for you in the deep, silent dark. You surface slowly, as if rising from the bottom of a deep, dark lake. Consciousness returns not as a rush, but as a collection of painful shards. Your cheek is pressed against the cold, wet earth. Your body is a constellation of aches, a deep, muscle-deep agony of stiffness and cold. A single, terrifying image is burned into the back of your mind, a pale, featureless face, a tall, dark shape. Was it real? Was it a nightmare born of hunger and terror? The line is so blurred it has ceased to exist. You push yourself into a sitting position, your back pressed against the rough bark of the giant fir tree. The absolute darkness of the deep night has softened into a murky, pre-dawn gray. The forest is eerily quiet, wrapped in a blanket of damp mist. Nothing is moving. The creature is gone, but its presence lingers, a stain on the air, a cold spot in your soul. You are alive, but the part of you that was the practical, skeptical charcoal burner has died here in the night. And then, through a small gap in the impenetrable canopy, it happens. A single golden ray of sunlight pierces the gloom, striking the forest floor like a spear. It illuminates a small patch of moss, making the dewdrops on it glitter like a fistful of scattered diamonds. It is the most beautiful, most holy thing you have ever seen. The light, the sun, it has returned. It has won. That single ray of light ignites something within you, a final, desperate spark of the will to live. You are not going to die here at the foot of this tree. You are going to walk towards that light. Getting to your feet is an ordeal. Your limbs are stiff. Your joints scream in protest. You are dizzy with hunger and exhaustion. You look around, but there are no landmarks, no paths. There is only one direction that matters. East, towards the rising sun. You clutch the handle of the clockmaker's axe, your only remaining possession, and you begin to walk. A slow, shambling, determined stagger towards the light. The first hour is a torment. You push through thorny thickets that tear at your clothes and skin. You stumble over hidden roots and fall into muddy hollows. You wade through streams of icy water that numb your feet. But you do not stop. Every time you falter, the image of the tall, dark shape flashes in your mind, and you find a new strength born of pure terror. That image is the whip that drives you on. After what feels like an eternity of this desperate, mindless flight, you begin to notice a change. The oppressive gloom of the deep woods is lifting. The trees are no longer exclusively giant firs. You see beech and oak, their canopies more open, allowing more light to reach the floor. The undergrowth thins. You see a stump, and the clean, flat top tells you it was cut by a man's saw, not felled by a storm. It is the first sign of human influence you have seen since you fled your clearing. A little while later, you hear it, a faint, tinny sound, carried on the breeze, a cowbell. It is the most beautiful music you have ever heard. Hope, fierce and painful, surges through you, giving your exhausted legs a new fire. You break into a clumsy, stumbling run, crashing through the trees towards the sound. You burst through a final curtain of low-hanging branches and stop, Blinking in the full, glorious light of day, you're standing at the edge of the woods. Before you lies a rutted dirt road, and beyond it, a green pasture where a handful of cows graze peacefully. You have made it. You are out. The relief is so overwhelming it brings you to your knees. You collapse onto the solid, reassuringly man-made track of the road, the rough dirt a welcome anchor to reality. The open sky above you feels vast and liberating. You have been reborn from the dark, green womb of the forest. After a few moments, you look at your reflection in a muddy puddle by the side of the road. A stranger stares back at you, a gaunt, wild-eyed man with hollow cheeks and a thick, matted beard. His face is scratched, his clothes are rags, and there are leaves and twigs tangled in his filthy hair. His eyes are the worst part. They hold a haunted, distant look, the look of a man who has seen things that cannot be unseen. You are what the old tales call Hols Rasarai, forest mad, a man who has been struck by the woods. You slowly, painfully, get to your feet and turn to look back at the place you just escaped. From here, from the outside. The Black Forest is no longer a collection of individual trees, paths, and clearings. It is a single, solid entity, a vast, dark green wall that rises up to meet the sky, its edges sharp against the morning light. It looks impenetrable, a kingdom unto itself. And somewhere in its deep, dark heart, it holds its secrets. Historians and folklorists of the future will debate the enduring power of these legends. Why do these same figures, the faceless man, the mischievous spirit, the ghost light appear in the folklore of so many different cultures across so many centuries? Are they tapping into immutable archetypal fears that are hardwired into the human brain? The fear of the dark, the fear of being watched, the fear of the unknown other that lurks just beyond the firelight? Or are they simply compelling, terrifying narratives, perfectly evolved to be passed down from a fearful parent to a listening child? A necessary language for a world full of real and present dangers. You don't have an answer. You only know what you experienced. You know that the legends are not just stories. They are a form of truth. They are the only words that come close to describing the feeling of being alone in the deep, dark woods. When the silence is broken by a sound that does not belong, you turn your back on the forest. You begin the slow, painful walk down the dirt road, leaning heavily on the clockmaker's axe like a pilgrim's staff. You do not know if it leads to Hofstetten or some other village. It doesn't matter. It leads away. It leads towards the sound of the cowbell, towards the world of men, hearths, and solid walls. You are a survivor, but you know that a part of you will never leave those woods. It will forever be huddled at the base of that giant fir tree, staring into the dark, waiting for a tall, silent shape to step out from between the trees. And now the deep, dark woods begin to recede. The image of the tall, menacing trees softens, the oppressive shadows dissolving into the gentle, quiet darkness of your own room. The story is over. Its journey from fear to safety is complete. And now it releases you. The memory of the cold forest floor fades, replaced by the warmth and comfort of your own bed. The frantic, pounding heart of the lost man slows, and you can feel it sink with the calm, steady rhythm of your own breathing. A slow, easy breath in, filling your lungs with peace. A long, soft breath out, letting go of all the tension, all the fear. The forest wall grows distant, a dark line on a far horizon, and then it too fades into nothingness. There is nothing left to fear, nothing to escape from. There is only the gentle darkness, the soft air, and the quiet, rhythmic sensation of your own breathing, a lullaby of safety and calm. You are no longer lost in the woods. You are safe. You are home. And you are drifting, peacefully, into a deep and well-deserved sleep.